McCarthy. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lascion Corla. I want to welcome the fact we're debating a very significant, a very important and a very sensitive issue as we run into the week of the budget. But we discussed that issue, Lascion Corla, against the backdrop of the most horrific economic consequences, not just facing Ireland, but facing the European Union. And one wouldn't want to be an expert in economics to know over the last number of days that situation is deteriorating and deteriorating rapidly. And that is the economic backdrop against this government who came to power in February with a strong mandate, who are doing their best with very limited resources. And that's the context in which this budget is being set about. The process, the budgetary process itself, has been very transparent. There have been a significant number of aspects to it that traditionally we haven't seen until the Minister would arrive in the plinth with his briefcase, and within that was the whole mystery of the budget. The single biggest loss in this country in the last 100 years was the loss of our economic sovereignty. On the 28th day of November in 1920, an area in my own county, Michael, became a focal point of the War of Independence. On the 28th day of November last year, this government ceded economic sovereignty, and we lost that economic sovereignty. And that was absolutely, it was humiliating, and there are huge consequences for Ireland and for our people. And that is the historical context in which we find ourselves in. We are now borrowing €1.25 billion every single month to pay our outgoing expenditure. That's excluding the banking-related costs. And now the very existence of the euro is being called into question. Figures today, Lascion Corla, show that the unemployment rate in the Eurozone has risen to an all-time record of 10.3%. And that equates to 16.3 million men and women who are out of work in the Eurozone areas. Now, central banks around the world have this afternoon moved to ease market strains by providing cheaper dollar liquidity to European banks, but the next 10 days will still prove vital in terms of completing and concluding Europe's response to the current crisis, and a crisis it is. The stark realities brings into sharp focus the dire economic context in which tonight's particular debate is happening. Much has been said and much will be said in terms of the Labour Party participation in this administration, and particularly in the run-up to the budget. And there are no easy options, there is no low-hanging fruit. And I am confident that our presence in government, along with our colleagues in Fine Gael, will ensure that this budget, tough as it is going to be, will also be a fair budget, because the last three budgets certainly weren't that. And we need a budget, and the overall arching ethos needs to be job creation and also protection of the most vulnerable, the least well off in our society. When we went into government last March, and when delegates of the Labour Party in the O'Reilly Hall in University College Dublin voted to enter government, we knew full well that difficult decisions would lie ahead. This is not a popularity contest. This is about restoring economic sovereignty, and is also about restoring Ireland's reputation abroad that was severely tarnished by the outgoing administration. Now, since we came to government, it's important that I point out a number of achievements, not least the restoration of the minimum wage. I thought of a lot of the decisions the last government made, one of the worst was to reduce the minimum wage by €1, because you were attacking the most vulnerable and the least well off. So the restoration of the minimum wage was one of the first tasks that this government set about completing, and that's important that I say that. Again, it's not an economic panacea, but nonetheless it is an indication of the commitment government have to the least well off in society. We reduced the pay of the Taoiseach and ministers, abolished state cars and state drivers, cut retirement packages for Secretaries General, introduced the public sector pay ceiling of €200,000,
1 minute remains,
reduced the number of Oireachtas committees, abolished the allowance for vice chairman of committees, which was 10,000, halved the allowance for chairs of committees, which was 20,000. We had the referendum and have since published legislation that has been passed in relation to the reduction of judges' pay. Now, a lot of these in themselves aren't going to get us out of the hole that we're in, but nonetheless it's important that I stay. For the benefit of an informed debate, it's important that I point out that. Another quick point, Lascion Corla, the Department of Social Protection spent around €20 billion last year. We took in 34. It is wholly unsustainable. I do hope that we can be in this House next week and see a situation where child benefit won't be decreased, because I believe, with all of the well thought out arguments and all of the points made in support of the current reduction the current fears that that rate might be reduced. Can I say in conclusion, it's incumbent on all of us to put forward proactive policies. And I want to say sincerely, we're all very fond of Mary Lou on this side of the House. She's a great colleague and a fine politician. But the policy of a 100% tax rate for all earnings in excess of €100,000 is unrealistic. What we need in the context of this debate are proactive, constructive policies that can serve to ensure that the least well-off will not suffer disproportionately in this budget.
Thank you, Deputy.